Hey everyone, I am Lori Keating and this is KidLit Meet and Greet. I am here with John Seymour and he is an author, illustrator, and turned publisher now. So welcome, John.
Thank you. Yeah, glad to be here.
Thank you for coming. Can we get started by you just telling everyone a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a long story, but the nitty gritty is that I had self-published a couple of books, and I had gone to, the query transfer with everyone else, and I had another book deal, but it was a hybrid publisher, and there were enough experiences that really allowed me to get the taste for um, the children's book industry, so KidLit. And in the process of the whole self-publishing side, where you have to wear every single hat, it really, really interested me. I wouldn't say more than writing, but I really like business in general. And I thought that, well, why not try to marry the two if I can? So we got a little team together and we started a small publishing press. Um, but yeah, I guess, yeah.
Okay, so that's kind of like answers my next question, which is how did you go from being an author illustrator, which is great. But where did the name Tielmour Press? Is that like a combination of all your names, or is that does that have a deep meaning?
Yeah, that's a good question. So Tielmour, so it started off obviously as an idea. The publishing company was just like, it'd be really cool to do this, but we'll see. But I had a number of other business ventures in my youth. Some were uh more optimistic in trying to start them, like, hey, let's start a solar panel company and stuff like that, but when you're young and naive and all that.
Yeah, sure.
But usually everything that I attempted had the name Teal in it. And I guess I just wanted to pay homage to that. So Teal just stuck. And Moore was just my running name that I was using because it's the last part of my last name.
Mhm.
And then it just stuck. So yeah, we kept it.
Okay, I love it. So, I had several people reach out. They have lots of questions for you about
Mhm.
when you open up. Now, you opening in June, is that right? June
Yeah,
1st?
for the
Okay.
month of June, that's correct.
Okay. And can you share like a detailed list of what you're looking for when you open up?
Yeah, so we had done, I guess it was a little subtle, but we had done our MSWL,
Mhm.
so our manuscript wish list. We had done it more so over social media with some email send-outs to our subscribers. Um, but to sort of reiterate what we're looking for, we do have our core topics that we want to cover. So environmental stewardship, anything around that. And I'll preface this part saying that it is open to interpretation, but at the end, we'll see how suitable each submission is. So environmental stewardship, autism awareness. We wanted a story about coping, and that's very open to interpretation. It was very vague on purpose.
Okay.
We wanted books on an unlikely hero or unlikely heroes.
Okay.
Another one that went well with our branding was outdoor adventures. We'd really love to have some books on outdoor adventures. And the last one, so the last one we did sort of different, and we tried to pride ourselves on doing things different. And I can get into that after, but we decided our last topic would be something that we didn't even know what it was going to be. So we pulled like a topic out of a box and was like, all right, that'll be your last topic. So our last topic's robots, whatever that means. But we wanted to try to make it a little bit more fun. Um, and so what we did is we took a bunch of topics that we were interested in that didn't meet our, top five. It's like, okay, well, let's just see what happens. And yeah.
I love that. So I didn't even realize that there was a bunch of different topics in there. It could have been anything. right? You got robots.
Yeah, yeah. We'll see what happens with that. But it was fun. So, maybe we won't get anything, but maybe we will. So
Well, I already know of someone who's writing a robot story, so you'll get them.
perfect. That's awesome.
So, do you accept author illustrators or do you prefer author only?
Yeah, so we have very limited restrictions. So we try to keep it as open as possible. Um, yeah, we'll definitely take author illustrators. We do take and have taken author only writers. So yeah, there's no restriction there.
Okay. And then another question that someone asked me to ask you is do you allow the authors to have input when it comes to choosing the illustrator?
Yeah. Again, so this one, there's not limited input, but we have to be careful from the business side what we open up to. So an example is we were prepping for another book that we have coming out next year, and we were looking for an illustrator that met the vibe and the feel of the book, and we came across one that we were really interested in. So we reached out over social media, and then we got introduced with her agent, and it just turned out that like everything was great except the price that we could offer because we are a new small press
Yeah.
wasn't anywhere near what we could actually offer. And ideally, we would love to offer what they would like, but it just wasn't in the cards. So there, from the business side, there are cost considerations, of course. So yes, we try to give input for choices of illustrators or especially input from the illustrations development side, but all within context and within our limitations. So
Okay. So, how important is it for you guys to see comp titles listed in queries?
yeah, so that's a good question. So when we receive a query submission, com titles are great to have. I'm not going to say they're high priority or critical, but it really just kind of adds to the totality of the submission to give us a better idea of the final outcome or the um, I guess the vision of the book and what the author has in mind, what it sort of looks like using a comp title. So you could have your story and it comes out, maybe it's written really well, but then if you use your comp titles to sort of navigate that, saying like, but I'd love for it to go in this sort of direction, maybe the illustrations, maybe the prose, maybe the book design, something like that. So really the comp titles, not critical, but they do help us get that final feel for what to expect for the final product.
Okay, that makes sense. So what is your process for saying yes to a manuscript?
The pro the process for saying yes.
Yeah, like do you does it come across one person's desk and then you share it with everyone? Does it have to be read aloud to children? I mean, what do you have a process?
Yeah, so we have our process that we have we're always developing new processes because we are still relatively new. We soft launched in November. So we've only been around a few months.
Wow.
But things are going well and moving fast. So the process is always changing. It's sort of living and dynamic, especially as we onboard new people. So we have um, two two people who will be helping with the submissions this time around.
Okay.
So we're going to be doing a panel, basically like a panel review,
Okay.
and we're going to be discussing and figuring out where it fits from a marketing side, where it fits from a branding side, um, and yeah. So I think that's what we're doing this time around.
Okay. All right. So, do you ever ask for R&Rs if you like the manuscript, but you still think it needs some revisions?
Yep.
Okay.
So we have sent out R&Rs. Um, so Stephanie's book was our I think our first R&R.
Mhm.
And like we're very, very excited for it. So that's No School, My Rules by Stephanie Henson. So yeah, absolutely. We'll send out R&Rs if there's potential for the book. It should be pretty clear in the manuscript what the core concept is about, even if the writing is a little loose or it's some editing. That's fine. That's all stuff that we can handle. Um, but if that core concept is there, and it's like it just maybe we just need a tweak from our end, and this is where that topic comes up of like if you have so many people try to ask for changes, the end result always I forget what the meme was, but like a pizza with turkey and Skittles, and it changes into something drastic. So we'll ask to see if they're comfortable because we can see it going in a certain direction.
Okay.
And if that jives, if that aligns with the author's vision, then it's probably a go.
Okay. That's great to know. Um, do you like look for potential series at all?
Yeah, if there's potential for a series, absolutely.
Okay.
Definitely.
And then are you planning on opening up to other genres other than picture books, or do you take more now?
Yeah, so we're focusing a lot on the picture book side. So we're doing nonfiction, informational fiction.
Mhm.
That's where our focus is on. That doesn't exclude chapter books or middle grade. In fact, we would like to have some chapter books and middle grade. We're not at the YA part yet. We're not sure when we're going to delve into that, but we're it's on our radar. But we do want to focus that we're for the foreseeable future exclusively children's book publisher. So uh, yeah, so definitely interested in picture book, chapter book, middle grade.
Okay, that's great. All right, so you have a couple titles coming out this summer, and Blink and Glow by Raven Howell and Anne. How do you say her last name?
I believe it's Pilicer.
Pilicer. Okay, and that is coming out July 15th.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, and then of course with Stephanie's No School, My Rules,
Yeah.
and by her and Maya. Is that how you say her name? Maya Tran?
My Tran.
My Tran.
Yeah.
Okay, and that is coming out on August 15th.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, what else would you like writers to know about Tielmour Press?
Um, Everything. I mean, I have to reiterate that we're definitely the new kid on the block, and it's been so incredible, challenging at times, but so incredible to kind of hop the fence. But it's also one of those things that like I guess the way I explain it to other people is if you go and watch a magic show, it's so wonderful to have the awe and wonder, but if you were behind the scenes and saw how it worked, it's just not that it's less magical, but you can't unsee that. And so we're sort of on the end, and there's so much magic in this industry specifically, and there's so much magic happening behind the scenes too, but it's just very, very different. And there's way more involved than I had ever imagined as just a writer, author, illustrator. Um, and Yeah, it's been a wild adventure, but we are new. So I'll reiterate that we are new. We are up and coming. Lots of barriers and challenges ahead of us, especially right now we have our Canadian primary territory for distribution is Canada. So we're still working towards getting our trade distribution into the US and then overseas and stuff like that. So we have a lot of big milestones coming up. The other thing is with Tielmour, the one thing that we'd love for everyone to know, if we haven't made it pretty obvious, is that we do have a slight inclination towards trying to be a bit more than a book publisher. In trying to find the voice of the brand, um, it was difficult to figure out what that was. Like, what is Tielmour? And we're like, well, we know we want to plant trees and do a little bit more. So right now, every book will plant a tree. So we have a couple of partnerships happening to make that happen, which is awesome.
Yes.
But in that same vein of trying to do just maybe a little bit more than what would be expected of a publisher, we're trying to do things a bit differently. So I know in my past, when we were starting this, there was the wonderful visit of, the imposter thing, like why would I do this, or why would we try this? Like, anyone else could do this. Why us? And a- after going through a few iterations, there's a couple of answers that came out of that. One is that it was bigger than us. The fact that we're able to like plant trees, and our current lineup of books are also we've allocated portions of those proceeds to different charities for children. In the future, we're probably going to double down on the tree planting side, just because I think that's where we want to make the most impact instead of spreading ourselves a little bit thinner from the charity side. But either way, for as long as the books are sold, we're going to allocate portions of proceeds to, Children's Hospital, different foundations. So that's super cool. So
Love
it
that.
actually has an impact in the world. It's not just, oh, my child really enjoyed that. I was like, that is the best case scenario. But now there's a little bit more. And so when we started thinking about that, is like, okay, well, we can do things a bit differently. And so, we're trying to think, how can we keep that going? And so, when we did our MSWL, we were like, okay, let's just do a random one where we don't know what's next, and everybody's left guessing. So that we really enjoyed that. We're going to keep doing things like that. Not to push the envelope or be, a disruptor by any means, but just to
It's
be
just fun.
different. Yeah. One of the more eye-opening things that we've learned was that the publishing industry, especially for children's literature, it's very rigid.
Yes.
And I know authors feel that a lot, especially from the submission side. It's
Yes.
it's very formal, it's very rigid. There's things in place that feel like they've been in place for a very, very long time.
Mhm.
And of course, they work. They work for the big five. They work for all the bigger publishers. So why break what, or
Right.
don't disrupt or break what works? If it's not broken, don't fix it. Um, but and again, I don't want anyone to think like, oh, we're gonna disrupt things. But
Uh,
when we think about like other examples of where that was true, you think about like taxis pre-Uber, like the
right.
taxi industry was just the way it was. Like
Right.
nothing changed until something changed.
Right.
We don't have we don't have goals to be that kind of, comparative. Like we're not going to be the Uber to the taxi industry, but we'd like to do little things and, try to be a bit more cognizant of how we can interact with the community. Um, so, one example, and it's not a big one, but we'd like to think it's a little bit different, not different, pardon me. It has a bit more of an impact, is we're going to reply to every single submission.
Nice.
Um, and we're not sure if that's a really good thing or just like, oh, here's 10,000 submissions, go nuts. So we'll figure that out. But if it gets, say we get into the thousands, then we have some things in place to help us, but we're aiming to give feedback, even just a little tiny bit of feedback for every submission. If we're able to give minimum one sentence that helps, that's great. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to see how we can scale that more in the future, if we get more submissions. So just things like that. Um, yeah, trying to do a bit.
It's great. I mean, it definitely makes you guys approachable, for the writing community. I think that's what's been so difficult, for the writers that I talk to is, we're submitting to people and waiting for answers, and 6 months to a year could go by before we get an answer, and that's pretty rough, when you're wanting to get your work out there and you want kids to have your books in their hands, so
Yeah. And so I was there. And I had waited a long time for things that never came. And I think that was part of the push, amongst other things. So one was my horrific experiences with hybrid publisher. And two was the fact that, I enjoy writing, and I had this sort of style that I was really, really happy with, whether or not the market was ready for it or wanted it. In my eyes, art was art. I was really happy with it. Of course, it could use some revisions here and there. I really enjoyed using my fountain pen to do just like black ink on white paper. I really enjoyed that. And I was like, why don't I just keep doing this if I enjoy it? So that's what I did. But there was never any movement from the querying side. And there was I had Joyce Sweeney,
Yeah.
true to her form, she replied back like probably next day or something. Just so incredible. I was like, oh, thank you for
Right,
that
right.
tiny bit of
No kidding.
closure. Um, I don't care if you hate it. Just like,
Just like, thank you.
yeah. Yeah, so that was great. But I really didn't like hoping for something to happen. And I felt like I wanted it to be a bit more in my control somehow. So that led me to the self-publishing side. I was like, well, I'll just try it, see what happens. There is a stigma towards the self-publishing side, and that's fine. But it was the learning experience that was the best part. And one thing led to another, which led to another, which led to another, and now here we are. So
That's fantastic. And you guys are making, writers' dreams come true. And that in and of itself is just huge.
yeah, we're doing everything we can. Yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting. So, any advice that you would like to share with writers that are going to query you?
With writers that are going to query us,
Yes.
um, so with the queries, the most important part is the story. This would be contingent on volume again, because we have to be realistic. We're a pretty lean team, but at the end of the day, it's the story is the most important part. The pitches, they're all important parts of the submission itself.
Mhm.
Um, but the pitch won't reveal the nuances of the story and the tone of the story. So we really look at the story a lot. So I know that's different for a lot of publishers, a lot of editors. They want the whole kit and caboodle with the whole submission process. That's fine. Um, we'd love as much information as possible, and so we will be using a form this time for submissions. We're again trying things a little
Okay.
bit differently.
Okay.
And we're asking for things as well, but at the end of the day, it's the story that we want. And so we're not restricting anyone to how many times they could submit, which might be at our own detriment. But keep in mind that the stories that are most reflective of the things that we're looking for are going to be the stories with the best shot.
Okay.
So if you want to submit something about, you know, uh, cowboys, I can't think of anything, but you go for it. Let's see it. We're not going to say, well, we're not going to say that we don't want something specific. Like maybe we'll get a really great fiction book, which we're not looking towards fiction,
Okay.
but it might happen. We don't know, and so we really want to focus that what we're looking for is really what we're looking for. And if there is a fiction book that's revolving around something, that's fine too. It doesn't have to be informational fiction or nonfiction, but those have the best chances.
Okay. Well, this has been so great, John. I really appreciate you coming on and doing this interview with me. Can you tell everyone where they can find you or Tielmour Press on socials?
Yeah, absolutely. So, myself, I'm probably most active on Twitter, X. Nobody knows what to call it, but
All right.
as long as Twitter's the URL, my theory is that's what we're going to call it. Until
Yeah, I
the URL
agree.
changes to X, then it's officially X. So I'm mostly on Twitter, but even then it's pretty sparse just because we're so busy. But from our social side for Tielmour Press, you can find us on the main ones. So Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We have our website. A lot of information is there if you're looking for anything. It's www.tielmourpress.com. And I think those are the main ones. We do have other socials, but we're focusing primarily on those core three. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I will add those on a graphic at the end of this video too. So
Appreciate that.
if somebody missed it, they can screenshot it at the end and find you guys. So,
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you and good luck with everything with Tielmour. I know it's going to be super successful for you. All
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
right. Take care.
Yeah, you too.
Bye-bye.